When Mrs. Sandover asked me to stay after class, I admit I was nervous. My grades were good, my homework up to date, at least I thought. I racked my brain for a reason she'd want to talk to me. Yeah, maybe my class participation wasn't up to par, but I was shy and the class was full of alpha jocks and cheerleader queens. Just sitting next to Jennifer Jacobs was a challenge. She was every 11th grader's Venus de Milo, in more ways than one, beautiful, but cold as marble. Thank God Renata Rodriguez was on the other side of me. She wasn't shy, exactly. More like wary. She got good grades, but rarely initiated conversation. We'd been in the same classroom for the last 3 years. She was quieter than I was, and so effeminate that I felt completely unthreatened by her. A good word, effeminate. I bet I invented it. A word meaning so neutral a girl that it was hard to think of her as one. So Jules, I wanted to pose a question to you, Mrs. Sandover said, interrupting my thoughts. Yes? I said, sitting up straighter in my chair. You know I run the school's drama performances. I was wondering if you'd like to be in our next production? I was fall out of your seat shocked. The drama kids were the school's golden children. Somehow Mrs. Sandover had made drama cool, and every social climber and wannabe YouTube influencer would have committed a major felony to get in. Naturally, Jennifer was one of the card-carrying prima donnas. No reply, she said after I let a few seconds of surprise evolve into a minute of silence. Do you think I could do it? I'm not that popular. She laughed. You have natural acting ability, so yes, you do your part proud. As for popularity, not yet, but things might change if you agree. You could move up a level in the school's pecking order. I have a nice role picked out for you. I twisted my pencil in my hands. What play are you doing? Romeo and Juliet. Jennifer's got one of the leads. It would be exciting just to be in the same room with her. And there was the cast party after the last show. It had a sort of legendary status among geeks like me. Why not? Sure, Mrs. S. I'll be in the play. Saying it released butterflies, no, a whole migration of monarchs, loose in my stomach. She smiled. Great. We have a casting meeting tomorrow after school. There are a few others who will be reading for the same part, but I think you'll outdo them. I nodded. I'd have to take a look at the play tonight to get a feel for some of the bit parts. Doing this was uncharacteristic of me, and I'd probably give myself an ulcer, but it was my junior year and sometimes you just had to jump off the cliff and hope there was deep water waiting for you. There are old cliff divers and bold cliff divers, but no old, bold cliff divers. The club room where the drama kids met was papered in posters of famous plays. 2 chairs had been set up on the raised platform at the front of the room for the readings. The rest of the chairs were arranged in a half circle around them. I took a seat at the farthest end of the seating. I was a nobody who knew no one. For now, anyway. This might change all that. Last night I had dreamed of cruising the halls, everyone saying hello, girls casting invitations at me with their eyes. It could happen. Mrs. S. handed me 2 pages copied off a Xerox machine. We'll read for your part first. Jack Benford and Kyle Winneto will be trying out for the same role. I glanced at the sheets. My eyes bugged out of my head. It was a dialogue between Romeo and Juliet. I was trying out for the male lead. I started to hyperventilate. If I'd had an inhaler, I would have been sucking down lungfuls of the stuff. All right, everyone, Mrs. S. said. We have a lot to get through, so quiet down. Usual rules: watch each tryout, then take one of the voting slips, fill in the name of the actor or actress, the role, and drop it in the fishbowl I have in the chair next to me. Your input will inform my decision. A few kids said yes, but most just sat back in their chairs and focused on the platform. Good. First we'll have Jennifer and Jules. Please give them your full attention. Two thoughts went through my head simultaneously. Jennifer? I was reading for a role opposite her? Because for sure she had a lock on Juliet. I'd have swallowed poison for her. The other thought was tinged with disappointment. It was a popularity contest, and that was something I never, ever won. I made my way to the empty chairs. Jennifer was there first, tossed her long blonde hair back over one shoulder, and poured herself into her seat with all the grace and hypnotic appeal of a jaguar. I knew I couldn't manage cool, so I prayed that I wouldn't trip. Okay, Mrs. S. said when we were set. Please begin. I began reading. But, soft. What light through yonder window breaks? It is the east, and Juliet is the sun. I stumbled to a stop. Jennifer had been reading the same lines. Several members of the jury of the damned giggled. Mrs. S. waved them to silence. I thought you knew, Jules. You're reading for the part of Juliet. What? I squeaked, the sound of my own voice a sudden embarrassment. She nodded. We're going to do a new twist on an old classic. Romeo and Juliet will be played by members of the opposite sex. All the other roles will be played as per the original play, but this particular switch will get some publicity. She looked at me, her eyebrows arched like two reflecting question marks. That's all right with you, isn't it? I must have been as white as the chalk that lined the blackboard tray behind me. I couldn't get another word out. Jennifer leaned forward. Oh, come on, Jules. It'll be fun. Her smile was a bow that launched unerring arrows into my heart. Fun? There was a kissing scene, wasn't there? There was in the movie. For that alone I'd dare everything. Yes, I said. Let's have fun. Somehow I made it through my reading. I kept my eyes glued to the page. If I looked into Jennifer's eyes, I would have melted into wordless confusion. Jack and Kyle's readings went well. Per usual, I would come in last in this race. Which wouldn't be so bad, right? The thought of me playing Juliet was daunting and fraught with all sorts of problems. Nobody else read for Romeo, so I guess the part was Jennifer's by default. I paid enough attention in watching the other tryouts to cast responsible ballots, but I kept returning to the upside-down plans for the play. Mrs. S. liked to shock, and she was all up into feminism, so I guess this was another of her statements. Pity the guy who got saddled with Juliet. It would make his life in school a special kind of hell. The more I thought about it, the better I felt about my poor showing. I dodged a bullet. The next day I was in lit class when Mrs. S. handed me a note. Crap, I said, when I opened it. The note said, "You're Juliet. You got the majority of votes and I think you'll make a marvelous female lead. You've got a lot of work to do to get the part down." I looked at Jennifer and she was smiling. Good job, Jules, she said sotto voce. I look forward to working with you. I'm sure you can get the whole feminine thing down. It'll be easy for you, right? I dropped my eyes to my desktop. Sure, I said. I bit my lower lip. How was I going to pull this off? What's going on? One of Jennifer's groupies asked. Mrs. S. raised her hands for silence as the buzzing increased. I might as well break the news. Jules will be taking a leading part in our Romeo and Juliet performance. Everybody give him a round of applause. There was some polite clapping. I blushed and did my best not to look terrified. "You're in the play?" Renata said. I turned to look her in the face. I just couldn't see past her glasses. They were big and cherry red, like something from the 50s. I managed a nod before looking away. She didn't say anything more. At the end of class, Mrs. S. pulled me aside. "We start rehearsals after school tomorrow. You're going to be devoting over a month of your life to the production. If there are going to be any issues, I want to know now." I shook my head. She pulled out a notebook. It turned out to be filled with costume sketches. One of the features of the play is that every act we're all going to change costumes, every change reflecting a different time period. Sort of like Women Through the Ages. She must have seen the lack of comprehension in my face because she flipped to one of the sections of her sketchbook marked with a tab. She held it out to me. Juliet in Act 1. It showed a mannequin-like figure wearing the kind of dress I'd always associated with Romeo and Juliet, a green floor-length number worn over a yellow pleated blouse and a front-tying corset. Act 2, she said, flipping to another page. It showed the same figure in a light blue Regency gown, one of the high-waisted, low-cut types that appear in Jane Austen movies. There were an awful lot of ringlets and sausage curls in that hairdo. I swallowed with difficulty. Act 3, she continued. This time the dress was pink and Victorian with lots of ribbons and lace and a large bustle. Act 4. A 20s flapper dress in silver was pictured, with a waist-length necklace, a cloche hat, and plenty of fringe. The hem of this one rode above the knee. And Act 5, she concluded. It was a very goth look. Black ripped jeans, a grunge t-shirt, leather wristbands, a nose ring, and plenty of moody makeup. "That's interesting," I said. "Don't worry, Julie, you can pull off all these looks. That's one of the reasons I recruited you." I grimaced. "Please don't call me Julie. It'll only make things worse." When I left the classroom, Renata was standing outside. She looked away from me, then entered the classroom I'd just vacated. Weird girl. Her backpack had a cactus embroidered on it. No wonder she had less friends than I did. ####. Rehearsal started right from Act 1 Scene 1. I didn't appear until Scene 2, so they sent me over to the costume crew. They were members of the sewing club, a spin-off from the Make Your Own Clothes elective course, 3 girls and 1 guy. They competently took all the appropriate measurements, not venturing to speak much. I did notice that none of them were wearing anything handmade. They talked around me like I wasn't there. The worst one is going to be that wedding cake he'll be wearing in Act 3. Can you imagine maneuvering around the stage with a huge bustle behind you? Watch out, scenery. A second of the quartet snickered. We'll need a stuffed bra for Act 5. Be sure to get his bust measurements. When they were done reducing me to numbers, I went to the side of the stage to watch the walkthrough. Everyone had scripts in hand and were reading lines, and making notes about the points Mrs. S. was making. I heard some jostling behind me and turned to find Renata dragging some a long box up the steps at the side of the stage. She was sweating from the effort, her black hair plastered to her forehead. This clearly wasn't her first box. "You're in the crew?" I said. She stopped and put down her burden. She took off her glasses and wiped them on the hem of her shirt. Without her glasses on, I could finally focus on her eyes, and was surprised to find they were brown and large. "I thought I'd give it a try," she said. She looked uncomfortable, glancing at the tips of her shoes and scuffing at some mark on the floor that only she could see. "I'm not stalking you. The thought had never crossed my mind, but when somebody says they're not stalking you, the only thing you can think of is that they are stalking you. I went to grab the box she had put down, but she maneuvered herself between me and the box and we bumped heads. I stood up, rubbing the spot on my forehead where we'd collided. "I got it," she said, ignoring the accident. She grabbed the end of the box with both hands and lifted it with a distinct grunt. She dragged it unsteadily towards the offstage area where the set crew was holed up doing things that weren't easy to describe but involved hammers, plywood, and duct tape. "Smooth move," said a voice behind me. I think the Beatles should have titled their song "Hey Jules." It was Alec, one of the few cast members who had bothered to talk to me. He seemed a nice enough guy, and in a twist of irony, "Hey Jude" was actually written for Jules Lennon. I hadn't been named for him, though. My dad liked the late 19th century French author J as in Jules Verne, and so I ended up labeled the way I was. "What do you mean? You don't have much experience with girls, do you?" he said. I shook my head. I'd scouted out the script in enough depth to know that Juliet was kissed in Act 1 Scene 5. It would be my first kiss. Ever. And Jennifer would be delivering it. I hoped we'd practice that part of the play over and over. "If you want any advice, let me know," he said. Mrs. S. called my name from upstage, so I nodded at him and headed towards her. When I got there, she said, "Let's go through what will happen in Scene 2. It's the first time the audience will see you, so you have to make an impression. Command the stage." I nodded. Hard to command the stage when I couldn't command my own nerves. "I don't see exactly what you're getting at," I said. Juliet's first appearance is not very inspiring. She's walked on by her mother and her nurse. Marriage comes up, and she dodges the question. Mrs. S. smiled at me. "I see you've been studying." By command, in this case, I mean get your character across to the audience. It's a setup that explains her later reaction to Romeo. Make them feel your reluctance. Give us a feel for the girl, she's young after all, younger than you are, who is hemmed in by her situation and the age and intentions of those around her. She wants more, knows there is more, but can't see a road to get there. A flash of resistance, but not yet ready to disobey. But oh, the tinder is there waiting for that fatal spark. She smiled at me reassuringly. "You'll be fine. You're perfect for the part, not just physically, but I sense bottled up emotions and dreams in you as well. You and Juliet are peas in a pod." It made sense when she said it. But how to do that? I had no experience to fall back on. She waved me off and I took a seat in a quieter corner amid the chaos of a first rehearsal. Had I ever felt trapped? Yes. 100 times. Every day. Coming to school was like that, a minefield, conforming to pressures and expectations, my classmates worst of all. Could I use that as fodder for Juliet? I opened my copy of the play and began rereading my lines, trying to fit myself into this complexity of a girl whose passion led only to death. When I was finally called to do my part in my first scene, I could tell Mrs. S. was frustrated. We ran through it several times, marking positions, talking about delivery and gestures. Every time I read, she'd shake her head. When we'd run through it for the last time, Mrs. S. called it a night. 2 hours had passed in a flash and we weren't very far into the play. I went to her rather than waiting for her to call me. "What am I doing wrong?" I said. She shook her head. "Can't put my finger on it. One thing for sure, you can't put her on like a costume. You have to be the girl inside of Juliet. Did you know that when they first eliminated women from roles in kabuki and replaced them with men, the men who specialized in playing those parts had to live full-time as women? If they were ever caught out of dress or character, it was bad news for them. I was surprised by this turn in the conversation. Are you saying I have to live as a girl until the play is finished? Because I don't think I can do that. She ran fingers through her hair. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying be Juliet. Not Jules. I arrived home more confused than ever. Mom had dinner waiting. How'd the rehearsal go? She said. I shrugged. Lousy. You'll get it down. Mom, there's something I have to tell you. She started ladling stew into our bowls. Yes? I took a deep breath. I'm playing the part of Juliet, I said. She tilted her head. I must be thinking of a different play. I thought Juliet was a girl's part. It is. She stopped mid-ladle. And you want to play Juliet? She looked up and studied my face carefully. I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks. I do. I think. All right. Then be the best Juliet you can. She returned to filling our bowls. She stopped one more time. I suppose I shouldn't invite Grandpa to the play. He'll just get upset. After dinner, I went up to my room and began searching the internet for information about actors who had to portray typical roles and how they prepared for them. I stumbled on Dustin Hoffman and was astounded by the prep work he did. I was particularly struck by his female role in Tootsie. I had to achieve the same kind of transcendence he had. I had to work just as hard, no, harder because I wasn't an actor at all. I typed a quick note and sent it off to Mrs. S. She'd have to help if I was to make this work. At the start of lit class the next day, Jennifer stalked up to me. Is this your idea of a joke? I shrank back. It's not a joke. Using Mrs. S. to lean on me. That's the dumbest way to get a date I ever heard of. She had her hands planted on her hips and her face was red. Even angry, she was incredibly attractive. I gritted my teeth, then laid out my reasoning. I have to get the girl thing down. Otherwise I'll stink up the play. You're the best I know of at being a girl. I want to learn by observing the best. She glared at me the way she might examine a cockroach. Is that lame line your best pickup material? No wonder you're still a virgin. I blushed, folded my hands in front of me, and waited. All right. Me and some girlfriends are meeting at the mall. You can tag along. Since you don't have a car, I'll pick you up at your place at 4 p.m. I nodded. You're buying us food at the food court, all of us. Absolutely, I said quickly before she could change her mind. It's only fair. Don't embarrass me, she said, and stomped to her seat and flung herself into it, a picture of discontent. When I sat down, I was conscious of Renata watching me. What's your problem? I said. I'm not the one with a problem, she snapped, and opened her textbook, ignoring me. Jennifer arrived 10 minutes late. I pulled out the notebook I was bringing and wrote note number 1, don't be on time. She was gorgeous, of course, perfect makeup, carefully styled hair, a model for the latest trends in fashion. She told me to ride in the back seat. I had to make a space in the empty shopping bags and hairbrushes and fast food wrappers. Note number 2, perfect display on the outside, messy behind the curtains. We met up with her 3 friends at the front of the mall. This one had seen better days, but it still had enough foot traffic to justify the anchor stores staying in place. Who's he? Reddy the redhead said. My homework, Jennifer replied with a shake of her hair. I get extra credit for babysitting. This is Juliet. This is Juliet? Raven hair choked. After a moment studying me, she said, "Yeah, I can see that." "Where do you girls want to go?" the third friend said. She was short and looked like a gymnast. "Olga Corbett, then." "I don't know about you, but I'm hungry," Jennifer said. "Food court." "Juliet is buying, so order whatever you want." Reddy flashed a toothy grin. "I don't want that stuff. They just opened up that new Brooklyn cafe. I heard the coffee is to die for and the desserts are bakery quality. Let's go there." They headed off without asking me anything. I scribbled note number 3: always expect the best and most expensive. I sat glumly in the booth with them while they ate a month's worth of my part-time earnings. They ignored me and spent a long time tearing down other girls and gossiping about a few select male members of our school. I dutifully wrote down The Art of War by Moon Tzu as note number 4. A different Tzu for a different kind of war. I watched Reddy. She used a lot of hand gestures. I was trying to copy one when Jennifer grabbed my hand. "What are you doing?" she said. "I was just trying to do hand gestures the way you ladies do," I said. "Well, stop it. You're getting on my nerves. He's always writing things in his notebook." "That's creepy," Olga Corbett said. "Give me that." Jennifer grabbed the notebook from the tabletop where I'd set it aside. She read the things I'd written and tore the page out of the book, crumpling it up into a fist-sized wad. "No more writing. You really don't get it, do you? You can't just watch, you have to experience." She gave her pals a sly grin. "What experience should we arrange for Juliet?" Reddy, who seemed to be the one with all the ideas, immediately said Victoria's Secret. They all laughed and dragged me to the other side of the mall after letting me pay and insisting upon an oversized tip. I was rapidly going broke. I'd been in VS's a few times in my life, mostly in search of ideas for my masturbatory fantasies. I was ushered to one of the sales associates. "This is where for art thou, Juliet. He needs to be fitted for a bra." I nearly toppled over in fright. "What?" Jennifer put her hand on my shoulder and whispered in my ear. "You said you wanted the full female experience." The sales associate, a young woman in her 20s, greeted the announcement with a raised eyebrow but no other sign of surprise. "As in Romeo and Juliet," she said. "Yes. Can you believe it?" Jennifer sounded bitter. "I'm the natural Juliet, but our director wants to play with gender roles, so she gave Juliet to this schlub." "How is that even fair?" I was surprised by the depth of her outrage. I didn't know she was unhappy with the casting. The salesperson cleared her throat. "Shall we step into the fitting room?" she said. She reached under the counter and pulled out a measuring tape which she held like a leash. "Do it," Reddy grinned. The other two joined in with little comments of support. I let the saleswoman take my hand and lead me to the designated space. "We'll be waiting for you," the girls said, waving and smiling. The sales associate was very professional. She had me take off my top. "You'll need an AA cup," she said immediately after I had disrobed. "That's a very hard size to fill." She smiled at what I suppose was a bra-fitter's joke. "Is that all there is?" I said. "You look at me and estimate my size?" She shook her head. "There's a lot more excitement to come." I couldn't tell if she was joking or not. When I didn't react, she said, "This must be your first fitting." Then she slipped the tape around my torso and measured me on my ribcage just below the slight swell of my chest. 38, she said. "We'll only have limited stock that you can choose from." That's not a typical size. I'm assuming Juliet will be purchasing something? I put my top back on and followed the saleswoman back to the showroom floor. Juliet is a 38AA, she announced loud enough for everyone in the store to hear it. Ravenhair shook her fist in the air. Yes! I win! Can I show you your options? The sales associate said. The girls grabbed me by the arms and frog marched me behind her across the store to the bra section. She opened several drawers and took out 3 items. This is what we have in your size, she said, holding them out. The girls took them from her. Oh, I really like the pink, Jennifer said. She held it out to me. This is a soft cup. Feel it. I did as I was told. I was certainly blushing to match the color of the bra I was examining. I like the scalloped lace that's around these cups. Always go for something with a little sex appeal. You never know when you might be showing off for somebody. And whatever you do, don't buy one of the Russian bras. Russian bras? I didn't know they did lingerie, I said. Jennifer sighed. They don't. I'm talking about one of those brutalist designs that's all stiff fabric and wide seams and rebar for support. I pretended I didn't hear that. Ravenhair, who wasn't holding any of the bras, said, since I won, I get to pick the one he buys. I'm not buying a bra, I said. Jennifer put her index finger in the middle of my chest. You certainly are, Juliet. You're getting at least 1 bra, and a pair of panties as well. You need to spice up that underwear drawer of yours with a little feminine finery. She smiled sweetly, the kind of smile that disguised daggers. For the play. We have a BOGO special on panties, the saleswoman said helpfully. There, you see? Jennifer said. You get to go home with 2 pairs. In the end, it was decided I'd take 2 bras, the pink one and a white one that had firmer cups. To foster the illusion, Ravenhair said. They played a different game with the panties. You get to pick them out, they said. But every time I held up a pair and asked what about these, they vetoed my selection. I spent 30 minutes suggesting dozens of different models, having to hold them against my hips so they could see how they look until I finally had 2 they approved up. I nicknamed one pair Shameful and the other Sinful. Not that I told them that. At the end, after I'd gotten approval for Shameful, lots of lace, low cut, shiny white satin with a tiny pink bow, a woman came up to me and said, "Oh, I really like those. I think you'll look good in them." I wanted to slip between a crack in the floor. The lady gave me a broad smile. You're lucky to have friends that help you with wardrobe choices. It'll make your transition easier. I mumbled a thank you while the girls giggled. Juliet is going to make a beautiful bride, Jennifer said. But we know how that turns out. The bill, even with the BOGO special, was enough to murder the last of my cash, even the $20 I kept hidden for emergencies. Reddy had the salesperson gift wrap each item. They each signed a little card to go with the gift-wrapped items. 4 girls, 4 cards, 4 pieces of lingerie. They wouldn't let me see what they'd written, but they had a great time showing each other what they had put down and laughing hilariously. Now they're just like Christmas presents, Olga Corbett said. Whenever you're feeling blue, just open up one of your packages and slip into the contents. You'll feel so much better. I rode home in silence. When I walked in the house, Mom was waiting for me. She eyed the VS bag I was carrying, but didn't say anything about it. How was your date? Wasn't a date, I said, anxious to get upstairs and hide my purchases where I'd never, ever unwrap them. Who was the girl? I saw the way she slapped you on the butt when you were leaving. Is that what they do nowadays? Instead of a kiss? I hugged her. Sometimes she was clueless, but always good of heart. That was Romeo, I said. A romance doomed to failure then and now. The next day didn't start out at all well. I'd just gotten to my locker and was pulling out books when a pair of cheerleaders came up to me. "Did you enjoy shopping last night? Heard you got some really great deals," one said, then they spun away giggling. It hadn't taken somebody very long to spread the word about Versus. The internet accelerated all kinds of ridicule, rumors, and character assassination. Really, sometimes it felt like the internet had been invented by the mean kids. Those sorts of sly jabs and innuendos chased me around school all morning. Lunch was avoidance on overdrive. I found an empty table in the farthest corner and parked myself there. I thought everyone was staring and making behind-the-hand comments about me, but when you're self-conscious, everything seems to be about you. I was halfway through my sandwich and bag of chips when Renata sat down beside me. "Here to add your 2 cents?" I said glumly. "Just gawking," she said. "I heard there was a new exhibit in the school zoo, Pantheus Julietis. So you've joined the dark side? I thought you were the detached observer type." "No. I'm sorry." She seemed genuinely apologetic. "I get how you're feeling. If it's any consolation, I think you're really brave." "Brave? Me?" I took a sip of my cola. I was the biggest coward in the world. It took guts to take on the part of Juliet. In Hispanic culture, machismo is a big deal. Now you have to pull it off or it's going to become the school joke. She opened her backpack and put an apple, an orange, and a banana on the table in front of her. "So, exactly how are you going to pull it off?" I told her about Dustin Hoffman and immersive preparation for a role. "So that's the reason for your shopping trip?" Makes a twisted kind of sense. You just picked the wrong girls. Do you really think Juliet is one of them? I shook my head. A lesson learned at a high price. You just need to find another girl. And where am I going to do that? After today's rumor mill disaster, no girl will even talk to me except to make fun of me. She took a bite of her apple, chewing thoughtfully. How about me? You? I couldn't keep the disbelief out of my voice. You're not exactly Juliet material. She sighed. Because my parents came from Mexico? I'm exactly Juliet material. Juliet is not restricted to Anglos, you know. Shakespeare is for the world. Every day I dream of a different life, of friends, of love. Instead, I'm relegated to a nun's existence, here at this insane asylum. What's more Juliet than that? Well, for one thing, those glasses, I said. Why do you even wear them? They're like a prophylactic. She took them off, staring at them. They're my business card. Huh? I said. She pulled out her phone and showed me a website, Auntie M's Trash and Treasures. The home page banner featured the very same glasses she was always wearing. I started this business a year ago. I figured nobody would buy from a kid, or if they did, they'd try to cheat me. Auntie M is my middle-aged alter ego. Nobody takes advantage of Auntie M. She kind of bled over into my real life, though. I see. Actually, it was kind of impressive that she ran her own business. I definitely wanted to more about that. She looked up, smiling. You can come over to my house and I'll show you my stock. My father lets me keep it in the basement and I've turned my bedroom into my home office. I sell a lot of stuff on the internet. Other things I sell through auction houses. I think that might be a problem, I said. I have practice after school. Duh, she answered. I'm on the stage crew, remember? I'm busy just as late as you are. My place isn't that far away. We can walk there in 20 minutes. Before I could answer, Jennifer showed up and sat down beside me. She glared at Renata. Renata returned an equivalent stare. It was like watching two boxers circle each other in the ring. Beat it, Jennifer said. Renata picked up the banana from her lunch and handed it to Jennifer. I'm sure you can think of better things to do with this than I can. She gathered up the rest of her things and walked away. Jennifer looked angry. Don't hang around with her, she said. Girls like her are bad news. Like her how? I said. She started to say something, changed her mind, and instead said, unpopular. I'm unpopular, I said, yet here you are. Oh, don't I know it, she answered. I'm trying to help you. Without me on your side, you'll be crucified. Your senior year will be a living hell. She stood up, dropped the banana on the floor and stepped on it. Stay away from Renata. You'll find you have no allies if you cross that line. She tossed her hair and headed back to the table where her fangirls waited for her. Definitely not Juliet, I thought. At the rehearsal, the crew brought out the Renaissance Juliet costume. Put it on, Mrs. S. said. You need to become comfortable wearing your different outfits. I noticed nobody else was being asked to dress up, but her logic was hard to argue with. What did I know about wearing a dress? The costumers took me off stage to the dressing room and told me to strip down to my shorts. I hesitated. Oh, come on, Jules, one of the girls said. This is the theater. Stop being coy. Coy wasn't the word I would have used, but I did as I was told. They gave me a pale yellow satin dress that they helped put on over my head. It was gathered beneath my chest and fell in a slight bell-shaped silhouette to my ankles. It had long sleeves that were open at the wrists like the mouth of a flower. A semi-transparent embroidered muslin panel about the size of a baby's bib that was part of the gown's construction went from my collarbones to the middle of the breasts that I clearly didn't have. On top of this garment they helped me into another layer, almost like a coat, which was how it was put on. It was forest green and nearly as long as the underdress. They used interior ties to hold the outer dress in place against the underdress. It wasn't closed fully, it opened in an upside-down V starting at my waist and reaching to the hem. It had a built-in corset that laced in the front, and they really cinched it in at the waist. That's tight, I said. Any tighter and I wouldn't be able to breathe. Welcome to the world of fashion trade-offs, the other girl helping me said. You need to wear it like this to give you a more feminine figure. Just get used to it. We can make a corset for you to wear at home to train yourself to the feel of it if you want. The sleeves of the outer dress had long, narrow cutouts that allowed the underdress's color to show though. They stood back to admire their work, then exchanged high fives. Looks good, Juliet, they told me. 1 down and 4 more to go. They helped me put on white ballet-type slippers, minus the steel toes. When I walked back out onto the stage, everyone was quiet. Then Jennifer started a round of applause. You don't make a half-bad Juliet, she said, and everyone laughed. I felt awkward and embarrassed, so I didn't look anyone in the eye. Now if I could only make the audience believe I was this slip of a girl who loved so fiercely that death was better than living if it couldn't be with my true love. That conviction didn't seem to manifest itself as we ran the lines. We got to the point in the play where Romeo was supposed to kiss me for the first time. I was perspiring with nervousness. I'd thought about this moment all afternoon in school as the clock had crept towards rehearsal start. Jennifer brought her lips close to mine, then pulled away. That's all you're going to get until the actual performance, she said in a whisper that others couldn't hear. I want you all lathered up so when it does happen, you can hardly disguise the passion and desire. That's a real Juliet moment for you. I know you want me to kiss you, and I'm going to use that to help pick up your miserable acting. I took a deep breath to steady myself, to stop the trembling. I could smell her perfume. Lilacs. It was an unfortunate choice. It made me think of funerals I had been to as a child. Romeo smelled like death. I wondered if the real Juliet had sensed what I sensed now, a future inexorably pointing to a grave. I was disappointed and it showed in my face because she smiled cruelly. When we were done running lines, Mrs. S told me to keep working at it. One day it'll just come to you. I heard the observation junket didn't work out too well. I shook my head. Shall I ask one of the other girls to take you on as a project? She said. No, I'm working on it. I glanced to the wings where Renata was watching me, a couple of 2x4s resting on her shoulder. Mrs. S squeezed my arm. We're counting on you. Is there any way I can take my costumes home to get used to them? I felt really awkward and a few times I almost tripped. It's going to get worse with some of the later ones. I suppose we can do that on weekends. You'll need to be careful with any that you take. We need them here during the week, clean and undamaged. I thanked her and went back to the dressing room to change. The costumers had left earlier, so I had to disrobe by myself. I was struggling with the corset ties when somebody cleared their throat. I can help if you want. It was Renata. Sure, I said. I'm not very good at this yet. I was relieved that she had stayed behind. She began to work on the laces, which had evolved into a stubborn knot. To do that she had to be next to me, almost touching. Her long black hair was like a mountain stream, restless and untamed when she inclined her head to see the knot better. She smelled like pine needles, a forest on a moonlit evening. You did good tonight, she said. I could see the passion in the girl. You mistake fear for desire. I could barely remember my lines but for the fear. And yet desire was there as well. I smiled. A condition that will come to no conclusion but disappointment. Renata sighed. I told you earlier, she is no fit Romeo to your Juliet. She had finally picked apart the knot and loosed the laces. She moved closer to slip the outer dress off my shoulders but it resisted, still held by internal ties. I lifted up the hem of the dress and began releasing them. While I worked at it, she began reciting. It is the east, and Juliet is the sun. Arise, fair sun, and kill the envious moon, who is already sick and pale with grief, that thou, her maid, art far more fair than she. Wow, I said. You should be Romeo. That was way better than when Jennifer does it. She kissed me. I stepped back in shock. What are you doing? I said. She shrugged. It just felt like you needed to be kissed. Sorry that I surprised you. Was it so terrible? I brought my fingers to my lips. They still burned with the heat that was imprinted there. I shook my head. Not terrible at all. Good. Are you still coming over to my place after this? I nodded. I was a little out of it after that. I hardly remembered getting the rest of the costume off. When Renata and I exited the changing room, Jennifer stared at us from across the stage. She pointed at us and shook her head. Renata gave her the finger. It was uncomfortable and I was glad when we got outside. You and Jennifer. I said. That Puta? Forget about her. I was quiet after that until we reached her house. She seemed tense. What's the matter? I said. She shook her head and we entered. A man was sitting on the couch with a beer in one hand, watching television. Leftovers in the kitchen, he said. Then he looked up. A scowl appeared. Who is this boy? A classmate from school, Renata said in a rush. We're working on a project and we have to do some research. Hola, Mr. Rodriguez. My name is Jules. That about exhausted my Spanish. He ignored me, fixing Renata with a glare. The door stays open. He leaves in 30 minutes. I don't want him in my house again. He turned back to the TV and took a long sip from his beer. I followed Renata upstairs. That was scary, I said. Oh, it went very well. I was prepared for worse. I tried not to think about worse. She showed me her website, some of the orders she was working on, her order tracking software. It was quite an operation. Do you sell a lot? I asked. More than I expected. The trick is to have the right merchandise. I go to a lot of garage sales and estate sales. You have to know what sells at what price, and keep your eyes open for the treasures that are out there. What's the best thing you ever found? I said, genuinely interested. I like to go to garage sales with my mom, but I bought mostly electronics and old comics. She was into costume jewelry. I once found a painting by Gladys Roldan de Moraes. I paid $100 for it. That's expensive. Did you make any money? Yes, she said, not elaborating any further. I heard her father climbing the stairs. He stuck his head in Renata's bedroom, not bothering to look at me. 15 minutes. He returned to his television. Come to the basement, she said. Is that all right? I glanced nervously at the doorway. She grabbed me by the hand but dropped it before we reached the first floor. The basement was packed with stuff. She seemed to have taken up half the floor space with shelves and boxes. She went to one box and rummaged through it. She pulled out a small cloth bag and removed the contents. Hold out your arm, she said. When I did, she pressed a bracelet onto my wrist. What's this about? I said a Shakespeare thing. I thought it might help you. It's nothing, a gold-plated sentiment piece. I wouldn't be able to sell it, so it might as well go to you. I held it up where I could see it better. It was all of one piece, with a gap in the back for putting on and taking off. It was engraved and I read it out loud. Though she beat but little, she is fierce. It's not from Romeo and Juliet, but close enough, right? Her father shouted from the top of the basement stairs. Time for your classmate to go. Now. We didn't delay. She walked me to the door, said goodbye, and sent me on my way. When I looked back at the house, her father was watching me from the living room window. He didn't look pleased at all. My mother was in the kitchen when I got home. I grabbed a water out of the refrigerator and sat down at the table with her. What's that on your wrist? She said. Oh, this. It's something they gave me at rehearsal. She held out her hand, so I took it off and passed it to her. She held it up in the light. She frowned, grabbed a magnifying glass from a kitchen drawer, and closely examined it. She handed it back. That's a very nice gift, she said. They must have a lot of money to toss around. That's 10-karat gold. Restless, I could not find my way to sleep. Instead, I lay upon my bed, the window AC rattling, the clock on the wall murdering the seconds one by one. I could think of one thing only: Renata's kiss. I touched a finger to my lips, traced the place where she had pressed hers against them. A gentle kiss, a kiss that promised more than I ever imagined, but here I was imagining it. A kiss with more weight to it than all the stars and planets. If gravity has a secret name, it is Renata, for I could think of nothing else but her. So much fire from a single spark. That moment had sealed my fate. In the morning, I stirred my cereal listlessly with my spoon. "You'll be late if you don't get a move on," Mom said. When I sighed, she asked, "Is something bothering you?" She sat down at the table across from me and waited. "When you met Dad, how did you know he was the one?" I said. Her eyebrows went up in surprise. "That's an unexpected question. I guess it was bound to come in some form or fashion. You're 17 after all." She rubbed her chin. "Who is she?" "What, don't know what you mean." I felt my cheeks burning. "Okay, I won't push you. As for your dad, I'd been watching him in school." The surprise was how quickly that casual interest turned into something else. Her eyes began to tear up. She still missed him even after 6 years. I rose from the table. I didn't want to make her sad. "See ya, Mom." I started to walk away, stopped, returned and put my arms around her. "I love you," I said. I was collecting my books from my locker prior to first period when Renata passed me in the hall. "Hey, wait up," I said, and managed to catch her. She looked at me but didn't say anything. I held out the arm with the bracelet on it. "Maybe you didn't see it, but this is marked gold." "I saw it," she said with a shrug. Why was she acting so distant? Did last night mean something less to her than it did to me? "What were you?" 3 girls stepped in front of us, blocking the way. Jennifer and 2 of her mole buddies, Reddy and Olga Corbett. Jennifer shook her head. "Slumming?" she said to me. "I don't know what you're talking about," I said, and tried to maneuver around her. They shifted to keep me from passing. "Well, it's just that you're taking out the trash," she said, indicating Renata with her head. The other 2 girls snickered. "That's telling her," Reddy said. Olga Corbett broke into a big grin. "Ask him if he's wearing those panties he was so eager to take home." Kids had begun to slow down in the hall. The air was filled with sudden tension and threat. Heads turned, a circle started to form around us. It was clear I had to end this quickly or things would get out of control. "I'm sorry, ladies, I really appreciate your Three Stooges act, but I have to get to class now. Please let us get around you." Jennifer's nostrils flared and I braced for a verbal explosion. She never had a chance to get to that point. Renata stepped forward and shoved her. "You talk a lot for a spoiled rich kid. If you have something to say to me, say it to me. Leave Jules out of your little gringa games." Jennifer touched the place on her shoulder that Renata had pushed. "You all saw that, right?" she said in a loud voice. "Rodriguez attacked me physically." She turned back to Renata. "All right, since you're a little slow and need things explained in simple terms, here's the deal. Nobody wants you in the play. Nobody wants you hanging around with Juliet. You're making it difficult to ignore you." Renata sniffed in disdain. "I understand why you are so afraid, Buffon. You're a bottle blonde and a bra stuffer. The real you is such a joke that you hide behind face paint and clown clothes." Jennifer swung a fist at Renata. Renata ducked. They began flailing at each other. Jennifer managed to grab a handful of Renata's hair and yanked her head sideways. Renata stomped her shoe on top of Jennifer's foot. They broke apart, looking for a new advantage. I knew how these things went. The odds were stacked against Renata, no matter what happened here in the hallway. I pushed forward and got between them. It was like stepping between two tigers. I was punched, shoved, and kicked. Reddy came in behind and grabbed me around the waist. I spun around, falling backwards, my arms windmilling. My elbows struck something hard. There was a cracking sound. Jennifer screamed. Everything froze. I managed to stay on my feet and turned around. Jennifer was holding her nose. Blood was dripping from between her fingers. Tears were streaming down her face. Reddy and Olga Corbett rushed to her side. "We're taking you to the nurse's office," Olga said. As they hustled their injured friend away, Jennifer looked back over her shoulder and shouted, "This isn't over, bitch." At that moment, Mr. White, the chemistry teacher, showed up and started yelling for people to disperse. If only he'd arrived 30 seconds sooner, but things had happened so quickly. It made no sense. Jennifer's gang blamed Renata, and it was me who had struck Jennifer, and that by accident. I grabbed Renata's hand and pushed through the crowd and steered her to her first class. She was tight-lipped and silent the whole way. "I'll see you in lit class," I said. "No, let's eat lunch together." Renata rubbed her eyes. "You should have stayed out of that. It's me she has a problem with." "Well, now we're both on the 10 most wanted list. Together." I paused. I needed to say something. It wasn't the best time or the best place for it, but life is messy that way. I've been thinking a lot about last night." Renata frowned. "I get it. I surprised you and it's embarrassing for both of us. I shouldn't have been so forward. I kind of lost control. I'm sorry. It won't happen again." I took her in my arms and kissed her. She didn't expect it, but she didn't fight it either. When I pulled back, I said, "I want it to happen. Again and again." Jennifer had a broken nose. It didn't need surgery, but a doctor did have to realign it. She showed up in school the next day with black eyes and bandages. I felt like crap. The principal, Mrs. Jordan, conducted an investigation to get to the bottom of the fight. Jennifer and her friends tried to blame everything on Renata, but somebody had been videoing the altercation with a cell phone, and that helped clear up some of the confusion and refute certain charges. On the third day, we were all called into the principal's office along with our parents. My mom was dressed in her Olive Garden clothes. She managed a daytime shift at the local restaurant. Renata's father had on cowboy boots, blue jeans, a belt with a large silver buckle, a white shirt, and a cowboy hat. Jennifer's mother was dressed in tight blue pants, a pale pink silk blouse, too much makeup, and a conspicuous gold necklace that was all about display. Renata sat on the far side of her father, the last seat in the row of 6 chairs facing the principal's desk, like she was self-segregating. Her dad kept glancing at me and scowling. Mrs. Jordan cleared her throat to get everyone's attention. "We do not tolerate physical altercations at the Mason Academy. As a private school, we have more options than public schools when it comes to dealing with unruly students. It's within my right to expel all 3 of you permanently." Jennifer's mother immediately objected. "That's outrageous and you know it, Carol. I want to see that hooligan thrown out or you'll hear from my lawyer." I wasn't sure who she was referring to, but I'd bet it was Renata. Jennifer had to have gotten her prejudices from somewhere. "Calm down, Mrs. Devereaux. I'm not expelling your daughter, nor any of the others. It's obvious from the statements I collected and the videos that were taken at the time that there is plenty of blame to go around. Of course you are free to go to court if you want, but we've already had the school's attorney look over things and you won't get any satisfaction from that approach." My mom raised her hand. So what are you going to do, Mrs. Jordan? In order to defuse the possibility for future confrontations, I am forbidding Renata to work on the theater club's stage crew. She also must spend a week in after-class detention. Jules will be put into detention as well. Renata will be spending 2 weeks in the discipline program. If she misbehaves in the future, I will take more conclusive steps. What about Jennifer? I said. You're not letting her off without any consequences, are you? She started all this. I made no effort to keep the anger out of my voice. Mrs. Jordan shook her head. I think the broken nose she received is enough punishment. Mr. Rodriguez stood up. It's just like it always is. This school is no different than the others. We are very much different than the public schools, Mr. Rodriguez, the principal said. We hold our students to a higher standard of academic achievement and personal conduct. Renata is usually well behaved. This outburst is uncharacteristic of her, which is why I have been so lenient. But if you desire, you can pull her from the academy. Her vacated scholarship will be used to help another deserving student attend our programs. We all filed out without additional discussion. In the hallway, Mr. Rodriguez came up to me face to face and tried to stare me down. If I see you anywhere around Renata again, I'll make sure she regrets it. Stay away from my daughter. Mom had been watching from a few steps behind. When the Rodriguezes left, she said, so it's Renata that you were talking about. Are you sure that's a good choice? Who said I had a choice? I replied. Do you really get to choose the one you lose your heart to? I'd lost mine, and things were only getting more complicated. It was strange to see Renata in her uniform. It looked a lot like a Catholic girls' school uniform: knee-length plaid skirt, white blouse, white knee socks, and saddle shoes. She hated it. Girls in the discipline program had to wear it to school. They also weren't permitted to wear any makeup, and they had to do their hair in pigtails. They arrived a half hour early before everyone else for special discipline projects like carrying trash, cleaning blackboards, and performing other school chores. They ate lunch together in a separate room, segregated from any boys in the program, not permitted to talk unless asked a question by their supervisor. If they had a free period, they had to report to the discipline program room for additional work assignments. They wrote nightly essays about the need for discipline. It was all very Orwellian. On the good side, people worked hard, never have to go back once their time was up. We spent after-school detention in Mrs. Sandover's room. I was sure she had arranged that. You really need to practice your Juliet, she said. Between Jennifer's injury and your acting issues, we're behind the curve. God knows if she'll even be healed enough to perform by then. She makes a big fuss. The play is a little more than 2 weeks away. You don't want us to flop, do you? I didn't. We saved a little time by getting me dressed for rehearsal while I was in detention. The costumes began arriving one by one. Each had its unique complications. When one of the costumers suggested corners be cut by focusing only on the outer garments, I found myself objecting. Everything has to be period. Everything has to be authentic. Otherwise, I won't be able to put myself into the role. I suppose that came from reading the actor's Analects. Renata had appeared one day in detention and handed it to me. Read this, the part concerning Iam. He was the most famous of the Japanese kabuki actors that played female roles. His insistence on complete submersion in the female lifestyle and absolute authenticity in behavior and dress must have wormed its way into my head. Renata was especially good at helping me with my lines. She had memorized Romeo's part just by listening when she had been working on the stage crew. She was so smart it scared me a little bit. We would do lines in between the other things we were doing in detention. It seemed so natural to be playing Juliet to her Romeo. Sometimes I got chills when the words mirrored my own feelings towards her. My knees shook every time we did the first kiss scene, even though we didn't actually kiss, but I only had to think back to our first kiss, and I was transported to that moment when lighting split my soul in two. The balcony scene brought tears to my eyes. I wasn't saying my lines to some abstract character. I was speaking them from the heart to Renata. Sometimes I was so choked up it was hard to speak at all. "You're doing well," Mrs. S. said after one detention reading. "Your hard work is paying off. Renata really is good, isn't she? She knows how to pull it out of me, that's for sure," I said. "I can see that. You two have chemistry. That doesn't happen very often." She stared at me, weighing something in her mind. "Are you two a couple by any chance?" I practically fainted. "Renata and I? What gave you that idea?" "Police," she said, extending the word to emphasize her disbelief. She winked at me and went off to work with the costume team, who now were meeting in Mrs. S. room before rehearsal because that's where all the action was. By the end of detention week, we had a whole crew of people showing up. I might have started some of that on the second day. Karen Polenko had stopped by to talk to Mrs. S., and I got up the courage to approach her before she left. "Would you be willing to teach me how to do my nails?" I said. "Yours always look so good." She thought about it for a minute. "Sure, why not? Let's do it now if you have time. Do you want to learn makeup basics as well? Jackie could really help you with that." "Sure," I said. "That would be great. I really want to get Juliet right." The next day 2 other girls besides Karen showed up. "I'm here to help you with makeup," Jackie said. She brought a makeup kit with her, as well as shoebox of miscellaneous makeup products like foundation, blush, and eyeliner. I tossed in some of my extras and asked a few of my friends to donate anything spare that they had. They're spreading the word. You'll be set for years by the time we're done collecting for you. She laughed in a natural, non-judgmental way, and I laughed, too. "I'm Marcy," the other new girl said. "I'll work with you on gestures and posture and walking. I can't teach you everything it takes for it to be second nature, but I can show you enough to be convincing on stage." By the end of the week I had a half-dozen coaches. I didn't want to lose all the momentum I had gained. I'm going to keep coming to Mrs. S. room every day after class. I'm putting myself in voluntary detention. I hope you'll all keep coming, too. I really need your help. Rehearsals were rocky. Jennifer and I didn't click. We were both stiff and distant. I heard her talking to Mrs. S. "You need to drop him. He's terrible. I can do the Juliet part without missing a beat." I asked Alex to understudy the Romeo part. "He can step right in. There's still time to save the play." "You're right, this isn't working." "Let me think about it," Mrs. S. said. "Don't think too long," Jennifer said. "We're under 2 weeks to go." That weekend there was an unexpected knock at my door. Renata was standing on the porch when I answered. I froze. "Can I come in?" she said. She had a bouquet of flowers in her hand. "What about your father?" I said. "He'll be really mad if he finds out you came over." "Then let's not have him find out, shall we?" "He went south to visit his sister." I told him I had auction work to do. Mom's voice called out from the kitchen. "Who was that at the door?" she shouted. "As you can see, my mom's here," I said. "Do you really want to come in?" Renata blushed. Did you tell her about us? I shook my head. I didn't, but she knows. Renata sighed. I don't think I'm fooling my dad either. He's pretty upset with me all the time. I stood aside and Renata entered my house. Mom had just stepped out of the kitchen. Did you hear me? I asked who was all she said when she saw Renata. Mrs. Lamont, I'm Renata, a friend of Jules. We're in class together. And trouble, too, Mom answered. Renata held out the flowers. For you, Mrs. Lamont. That makes this visit seem so much more important. Are sure these are for me and not for Jules? I blushed. Mom, why would a girl bring me flowers? I don't know. You seem to be getting an awful lot of things from girls these days. She turned to Renata. Did you know he has a dresser top of makeup and beauty care products in his room? All courtesy of girls from school. In fact, he was just working on his eyes before you came. Do you think I should be worried? About the makeup? Renata said. I don't think so. It's for the play. Mom took the offered flowers. I didn't mean that. I meant you. Renata looked uncomfortable. I guess he's just popular. That must be it, Mom said. Jules didn't tell me you'd be visiting. I hastened to save the conversation from going into tighter places. We wanted to work on the play. She knows all of Romeo's lines. Mom quirked an eyebrow. I bet she does. Well, since she's here, you two might as well practice. She looked at her watch. I'll make sandwiches. Plan on 45 minutes from now? Do you have any allergies or food restrictions? Renata shook her head. She followed me upstairs. I half expected Mom to call us back down to the living room, but she didn't. Wow, did she make me sweat, Renata said once we were safe. You know the flowers really were for you. I improvised. If I'd thought about it, I might have brought your mom some tequila. She looks like a tequila kind of woman. Is she always like this? I've never seen her this way before. I think she's just being overly protective. Renata sat on the edge of my bed. Looks like my dad and your mom are cut from the same cloth. Don't they know we're 17? I think they're probably painfully aware of that fact. 17 can be a dangerous time. How dangerous? Renata said, her lips curving into a mischievous smile. My eyes widened. Really dangerous? Explosive, in fact, if I kept staring at her lips the way they invited me to. She pulled me down beside her. Exhibit 1 in the case of the people versus Romeo and Juliet. She kissed me. We kissed. Then we kissed again, in case Exhibit 1 was misconstrued. Exhibit 1 took a lot of explaining. I began to think about Exhibit 2. What new evidence would be introduced? She slipped a hand up under my shirt. You have a bra on, she said at a certain point in her introduction to Exhibit 2. I thought I saw something. By then I was lying flat on my back on my bed with her next to me, one of her legs draped across mine. I'm trying to understand the whole bra mystique, I said. For the play. She began to lift my shirt. Let's see what you picked out. Are you really going to jump in with both feet on Monday? I nodded. She ran her fingers over the lace trim. Is this one of the infamous mall bras? That story keeps recirculating. No doubt Jennifer and company are keeping it alive to embarrass you. After Monday, that might be the least of my worries, I said. She pulled her shirt off over her head. Want to compare? Mom started to climb the steps, treadles creaking. Shit, I said. I jumped up off the bed, pulling my shirt down and heading to the door to buy Renata a few more seconds to get her shirt on. Mom and I arrived at my door at the same time. She looked past me. How's the rehearsal going? She said. Good, Mom. Her eyes caught the wrinkled covers where we had been kissing. You've been on the bed, I see. That didn't take long. I expected a little more control. I'm just downstairs after all. Or is that part of the play? It's in the crypt. Romeo's deathbed, I said hastily. Well, then, sorry to interrupt a death scene. I got done making lunch early and I thought why not just eat now? Then when we're done, I'll sit on the couch just like a real audience and you can run your lines for me there. How does that sound? Sounds great, Mom. She gave Renata a sweet smile. Thank you so much for the flowers. They look really good in the kitchen. Mom dropped me off at school on Monday morning. Before I opened the car door, she said, "Are you really sure you want to do this? I think you're taking things a little too far. I mean, I know you're not gay. The private rehearsal you and Renata attempted on Saturday proves that. But you might give people the wrong idea. Once people think something, it's hard to change their minds. I need to do this. I'm not getting into Juliet's head quick enough." I took a deep breath. What do you think of Renata? She nodded. I've been thinking about that. She seems like a nice girl. Very straightforward. Maybe a little too aggressive? I can see how that might be attractive, though. Sometimes it's nice to let someone else take the lead. It's important to me that you two get along, I said. I need to have one person in my corner. She squeezed my arm. Always. Good luck today. Whatever happens, I'll be there for you. The walk from the drop-off point to the entrance seemed like it was a mile long. I tried not to be self-conscious. I'd gone for a very conservative look. My light blue skirt was almost knee-length. The long-sleeve white button-up blouse was cut from sturdy cloth. You wouldn't be able to see the straps of my bra through it. Except for the slight but unmistakable curve to my chest caused by the tissues I'd stuffed in the cups, you might never guess I had one on at all. I wore black flats and white anklets with scalloped edges. The panties were the thing I sensed the most. They weren't designed for male equipment, so they were tight against my balls, like a hand was pressing against me down there. I didn't know which of the girls had written the card that came with the panties. It said you're the kind of boy that was made to wear panties. I bet you'll get a little thrill every time you put them on. I'd done basic makeup, light pink lipstick, a little blush, and mascara. The wig was a shoulder-length black cascade. Everything I'd read about acting had said be the girl. This was me doing that. Each step toward the door seemed to get harder and harder. People stared. A few whispered. Somebody whistled. My flight instinct pushed forward. My throat suddenly was dry and it was difficult to swallow. I had to keep moving, one foot in front of the other. If I stopped, I'd turn around and run. The school door swung open. Renata came out holding a sign that said "Welcome, Juliet" in bold red letters. At least a dozen girls and boys were with her. People from the play. People who had been helping me in detention. They clapped, hooped, and waved placards with supportive words. I stood up straighter, stepped with more confidence. I had friends I hadn't known I had. And a girl I loved beyond distraction. The walk to my locker was exciting. More people gathered. A chant started, Juliet, Juliet. I felt like I was in a safe place. My fears began melting away. When I entered math class, Mr. Magalhaes raised an eyebrow but didn't say anything. Class began normally. Halfway through, the loudspeaker broadcast a message. Will Jules Lamont please report to the principal's office? Everyone turned to look at me. I stood up, smoothed down my skirt, grabbed my books, and left the class. Somebody shouted good luck. There was nobody in the halls. At the principal's office, I had to sit on a bench, waiting, before I was ushered in to meet with Mrs. Jordan. She was just about to say something when Mrs. S. burst into the office, a little out of breath. She looked at me, nodded, then turned to Mrs. Jordan. Before you decide anything rash, Carol, I was the one who told Jules to come to school like this. Which wasn't exactly true. Generally, yes, she told me to be Juliet. But not to do this. Really, Susan? You should have cleared this with me. Anything that's going to disrupt the efficient handling of the school has to be my decision. I watched silently. It would be a very bad idea to get in the middle of this. Later, if necessary, I could add my perspective. But we do this every time we have a play. I don't need special permission for that. The week leading up to the production, a few kids each day wear their costume as a way of generating publicity. Since Jules has 5 costume changes, he was going to come in a dress every day next week. Wait until you see the Victorian gown we have him in. The class bell rang, announcing the end of one class and the beginning of the next. Outside in the halls, it would be chaotic and noisy, but here you could hardly hear it. Mrs. Jordan shifted in her chair. I don't think this is one of his costumes, and it's the week before the week of the play. We have a dress code that governs this. I'm within the dress code, I said. Time to jump in with both feet. Mrs. Jordan's head swiveled in my direction. I read all that before I came to school dressed like this. These clothes are well within the school guidelines. But you a boy, and those are girls' clothes, Mrs. Jordan said. I shrugged apologetically. The guidelines don't prohibit a boy dressing like this. It doesn't specifically mention gender at all. She glared at me. The intent is clear. Mrs. S. jumped in. He's not breaking any rules, and I asked him to do it. I'm not seeing the problem. Principal Jordan shook her head. The problem is that dressed like this he's going to disrupt the whole school. He'll be bullied and ridiculed, and he'll never get out from under the storm he's going to cause. I need to forbid this for his own good. Outside, I could hear a sudden chant from the hallway. Mrs. S. and the principal looked up. Jordan hit her intercom. Check on that for me, will you, Kathy? She said to the office assistant. A moment later, Kathy opened the door. It's a group of about 100 students. They're blocking the hallway and carrying signs that say Free Juliet. It doesn't look like they're going to be dispersing anytime soon. Mrs. S. smiled. It seems to me Jules has already gotten the approval of the students. There will be more trouble if you play unsympathetic bureaucrat than if you just let this happen. Are you behind this, Susan? She replied. Mrs. S. shook her head. This is spontaneous. The principal turned to me. When did you become such a favorite? Your record is undistinguished except for a strong showing in the STEM subjects. Well, don't squander the opportunity to make a difference. You have my permission to dress this way for the remainder of the week if you decide to. You can return to your classes. Mrs. S. motioned for me to step out into the hallway first. When I appeared, a shout went up. Everything's okay, I said. I don't have to change out of these clothes. I was escorted to my next class by a dozen of the protesters. I thanked them for their support. Last to approach me was Renata. Somehow I knew you were in the middle of this, I said. She smiled and hugged me. Have a good rest of the day. I'll see you in detention. Just want to say, you look hot in your outfit. I blushed. Thanks. Mrs. S. classroom was filled with people when I arrived for end-of-day coaching. People had rearranged chairs and were crowded around the perimeter of the room. Thought we'd do a quick run-through of the balcony scene, she said. I've had a number of requests to see it. Renata, would you be willing to assist our Juliet through his lines? I was nervous. This felt like a real audience, and it would be my first time in front of people beyond a few of the drama club who had been helping me, not counting rehearsals with Jennifer. I shouldn't have been so worried. As soon as I started with my lines, I fell into it naturally. The desire I felt for Renata propelled me through the scene without any mistakes. I just let myself be Juliet, and Renata was appropriately my Romeo. When we finished, everyone stood up and applauded. It sounded like real applause, not polite pity applause. After that it was help with a few gestures and getting down certain body positions. I got into the Victorian dress, the one the costumers called the wedding cake. It was pink silk and white satin, tightly fitted around the bust and waist. It was padded up top to give me a set of curves. The bustle was prominent. Whenever I wore this, I had to keep reminding myself that I had a caboose. There had been a few train wrecks in the early days. When I had brought it home to wear around the house to get more comfortable in it, Mom had teased me and called me princess. She took a couple photos on her phone. I bet your Aunt Livia will go bonkers over this, she said as she sent them off with details in a text to her sister. She's a closet princess herself. You should have seen the things she dressed up in when we were kids. The skirt had a lot of ribbons and there was a hoop skirt underneath that gave it a wide circumference. It was hard to believe that women actually wore things like this. It made normal movement difficult. It would be hard to get into trouble kitted up like this. And sitting down was impossible. Mrs. S. walked me to the rehearsal. She was quiet, then said, "You're doing wonderfully. I never would have expected you to master so much in so little time. I'm proud of you." Praise was something I was not used to or comfortable with, so I muttered a soft thank you and let it go at that. It's not called a drama club for no reason. Drama stalked onto the stage and marched up to me in the form of Jennifer Devereaux. She looked more than a little angry. Her nose was still slightly swollen, and she carried fading reminders of the black eyes that had been so prominent early on in the healing process. "Are you trying to sabotage me?" she said. "When we rehearse, you're cold and stiff and awkward. You're killing me with your lack of skills. Nobody can be that bad. I know you're doing it on purpose. Don't think I haven't heard about you and the steamy scenes you've been putting on with your little burrito. That's all I hear about around school. If you can do it with her, it ought to be 100 times better with me." "I'm not so sure it's my fault," I said. Dressed like I was essentially nailed in place, unable to escape her tirade. "How dare you say that to me?" She slapped me across the face. It stung and I put a hand to the place where she had struck me. "I'm the star of this show. You're a nobody. And don't think I haven't taken steps to settle with your friend. Nobody crosses me." People were shuffling nervously and trying not to watch the confrontation. She reached her arm back to slap me again. I tensed in anticipation. Before she could swing, Mrs. S. appeared and grabbed Jennifer's arm and pulled her back. I could practically see the steam coming out of Mrs. S.'s ears. I've had enough of you and your tantrums, Jennifer. I think for the good of everyone involved I'm going to have to ask you to leave the play. Jennifer's mouth dropped open. Me? Not this worm? Are you serious? It's a stupid production anyway. What a demented idea, cross-dressing Juliet. You've made a terrible mistake. She turned to address the other kids gathered on the stage. Come on, everyone, we're shutting this down. We're walking off the set. Let's go. She took 4 steps away, but nobody moved. She spun back. You can't be serious. You want to be part of this disaster? Show that you're with me. Nobody would look her in the eye. Who are you going to get to replace me? I'm irreplaceable. Nobody seemed to be moved by her rant. You'll all see, she said, and stalked off. Hell hath no fury, they say. I understood now where that saying came from. Mrs. S. had one of the people with a small part read Romeo's lines. Everyone was subdued and the mood was somber. It was not a successful rehearsal. After we broke for the evening, I approached Mrs. S. If it helps, I'll quit so you can bring Jennifer back. She is popular. Mrs. S. sniffed. Not so much anymore, I think. I'm perfectly comfortable with you as Juliet. And we'll get the perfect Romeo. Where? I said. She looked at me like I was dense. Why, Renata, of course. But she's banned from the play, I said. No, she's banned from the stage crew. As far as I'm concerned, she can fill one of the roles. Listen, you don't know how good you and she are. I've never had this before in all my years of putting on plays. You two exude desire, a need that borders on lust. You play it perfectly, just the way every Juliet that's ever walked on a stage wants to play it. Whatever you two have, don't lose it before we go on stage for real. It made sense, bringing Renata on as Romeo. I was already feeling the shivers in my stomach that I got when I thought about her. There was only one nagging thought that kept coming up, trying to spoil the elation I was feeling. Jennifer said she'd taken steps to settle with Renata. Jennifer was many things, but she wasn't a liar. I grabbed my phone and called Renata. It rang and rang, but she didn't answer.